what you're telling me, Sarah, is
Yes.
if I want to leave a permanent piss mark, just pee on a Cybertruck.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
This is hypotheticals for a game. We are not advocating for people to do vandalism with your bodily fluids.
No, that's illegal.
Yeah, that is crimes, and
I would
we are
absolutely never condone you to do crimes ever.
never.
Don't piss on your local Cybertruck.
If you do, tell me about it, because I will find it funny, but I'm not suggesting you do it. But if you don't listen to me, tell me that you didn't listen to me so I can giggle a little bit.
Yeah.
Also, so we can try to like change our wording, so hopefully next time you will listen to us.
I mean, if you happen to observe somebody else that had pissed on a Cybertruck and left a stain on the untreated steel,
Yes.
and you're telling us about the terrible crimes other people have committed against personal property,
Exactly. We might get a chuckle.
We will chuckle. Well, I'll wag my finger like, no, it's not supposed to do that.
That person messed it up.
But it's pretty funny that you bought a truck that is untreated metal that you just take outside.
I'll go so far as to say, surprisingly, I'm not a lawyer, and so I'm not going to tell you whether you should or should not piss on a Cybertruck. That is beyond my legal purview to speak on. But if you have stories about it, please share.
You have a legal obligation to not do it, but you have a moral obligation to do it. That is between you and God, and by God, I guess I mean Set. Hi.
Yeah, speaking of a moral obligation, hi and welcome to Blank Bodies, a Vampire the Masquerade V5 tabletop and horror podcast. I'm your host, Hunter, and as always, I'm joined by...
A moral obligation to debauchery. I'm John.
And I'm Sarah, and apparently I have already converted them.
Oh, I was implying that the moral obligation was to listen to our show, but...
I mean, we are also a debaucherous, scandalous temptation of a World of Darkness podcast, so yeah. All of us have dated, I promise you. At some point in our lives. I've witnessed all of us have partners at some point, I promise.
We do have Riz?
We
Just
do have
not.
Riz, it happens. Anywho, so as part of our Vampire the Masquerade Clan Deep Dive series, we are covering The Ministry.
Yeah.
As voted on by our patrons with their lovely Patreon polls to help us direct the flow of our show.
Ding, ding, ding.
And speaking of which, that poll should be available right now as you're listening. It will go up the same day as this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Which is today.
Yes, in the future, which is now.
It's a Monday.
It's
today.
a Monday.
Unless you're listening to this another day of the week.
In which case, the poll came out earlier.
Yeah, but it's during that week. So as long as you listen to this episode during that week, the poll will be active.
Yes.
If it
but
is-
after that,
Yes.
sorry.
If it's after that, but even more in the future, I apologize.
Yes.
But if you join our Patreon or our Discord, you'll get notifications when those polls come up.
Yeah.
So then you don't have to worry about catching the show every Monday to know when a poll's going up. You just keep your notifications on, and on Monday you'll get an email.
Yeah.
And that's how we do.
Hell yeah. So, if you have missed it the previous week, we did the first part where it was about clan vibes and beliefs and cultures and disciplines and all of that fun fluff stuff.
That's the part we got roped in on. Now we're going to go to the history and regret that we're roped in.
Yeah, we're going to strap in.
It's very
Strap
ministry
on.
of you.
It is. Turns out I was a secret minister this whole time. Everybody was like, oh yeah, Sarah's such a Tremere. Secret set tight the whole time. Which would make sense considering my gear bag. Anywho.
I prefer that. I would prefer for you to be a Setite. Yeah.
I mean, I am a redhead, so
Perfect. There you
there's
go.
that. Anyway, so we got clan history, major NPCs, lore sheets, all of that kind of stuff this episode. Our sources will include the Vampire 5th Ed Anarch book, Vampire Core book, the V5 Player's Guide, Cults of the Blood Gods, Clan book, Setite Revised, Veil of Night, Ritual of Blood, the Player's Guide to the Low Clans, Lore of the Clans, Beckett's Jihad Diary. Yes, I read that bitch again. It is thick. The amount of times I've read that book, it is a testament to my own hubris. Libelous Sanguine 3, Wolves at the Door, VTM 20th Anniversary, Mummy 2nd Edition, Cairo by Night, Vampire the Masquerade Dark Ages 20th Anniversary, and Let the Streets Run Red.
Those mummies really get wrapped up in everything.
They really do.
No, they haven't showed up like once till now outside of like my own wishes.
That's not true. We've talked about Mummy quite a few times.
Yeah,
Very
'cause
briefly.
Hunter Just like, by the way, mummy, and we're just like, anyways.
But they've been connected, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, there's a through line.
Yeah.
Hunter is just slowly manifesting more changeling and mummy into the show.
We're gonna
Just by
get-
his mere existence.
Mummy touches everything but itself. It feels like.
All I'm saying is when we get M 5 and C5, you can thank me for manifesting that for you.
So what you're saying is that mummy is a service top.
I guess so.
Yeah, that's fair. Anywho, the clan founder for the ministry is a guy named Set. You may have heard of him.
Who's that?
Set is the god of storms, war, disorder, and foreigners, violence. Sometimes horny times, sometimes not. Depends on where you are in the timeline of the stories in the canon of Set.
It's really interesting to have one of your domains as a god be foreigners.
Yeah, there's several reasons for that. We'll get into it in a little bit.
Okay.
Good chunk of it involves Set fucking some bitches. But yeah.
Get it.
Long and short of the issues I had with researching the ministry is there are so many fucking different versions of this motherfucking story.
Which kind of makes perfect sense for the clan.
Yeah, so...
I assume since, like, the beginning, they're like, well, this is my brand, so...
Mm-hmm. This is my interpretation. This is my understanding. And depending on the branch of the cult or how these cults and branches and churches all interweave, you might be told one version of the story, and then you move up in ranks and connections in your understanding of the world and reality, and they're like, okay, that was a false story. You can be told the truth, and you get a new revelation. And then you're a good noodle by being a bad noodle for long enough. And then they're like, by the way, that was all bullshit. Here's the actual truth. So every minister is going to have their own version of this fucking story.
It's kind of like moving up in the Tremere, where they just really reveal little bits at a time to you.
Yeah, which makes my research fucking annoying. I got to like 15 different canonically written versions of the origin stories of this clan. And I gave up the formatting I was going to give you guys because I was just like, this isn't fun. It's going to suck. So yeeted that out the window. I set my own societal standards on fire to present a more truthful version of events.
You know, like I said, this is a very ministry episode.
It is. So, I'm just going to give you the TLDR. These are the most common truths and through lines I could find that is given to us by the clan of lies/faith.
Let's go.
Let's go. So, TLDR. The ministry believes that they are not descended from Cain. That is the most common fucking thing amongst the clan.
I feel like there are like 5 clans that actually think they're descended from Cain. I feel like everybody's like, we're special. No, fuck off.
There are other clans that are like, we may have origins not from Cain, but this is one clan where they're very definitively,
like, no.
as a group, like, no.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of the other clans, when they want to be special, they're like, we were Cain's favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Or
maybe our antediluvian existed in some other form before Cain, and then Daddy Cain took us in.
Right.
Yeah, these guys are like, nah, we don't fuck with that shit. That's not our thing.
Do they not have a version of that story at all where they tie into?
They're, depending on where you are in the orthodoxy and the culture, they will accept, obviously, because they can fucking see them with their eyes. They're snake eyes, but eyes nonetheless. That there are other vampires that do roughly the same thing as them.
Right.
But different. So they're just like, oh yeah, these are like different lineages, or oh, the Cain and his child are agents of the Aeons, so therefore they're enemies to us. Or Cain, they're confused and they think Cain is insert what other Egyptian god that he is analogous for.
I would imagine if the way they view themselves, they would assume Set, wouldn't it be? They'd be like, oh, they're just other family lines of Set, basically.
Yeah, or they're like, okay, well, like...
You're very confused. Your Cain was spelled S-E-T.
Yeah, so it'd be like, either you're confused, everybody is actually a Setite, joke's on you, or they're like, oh, okay, well, we are descendant of Set, and then these other vampires are also divine god beings, but they're descended from other Egyptian gods in the pantheon. There's a fuckload of gods you can pick from. Have fun with this however you wish to build your character. Or your NPCs if you want to be really fucking confusing. This can be told through various forms of formats depending on the minister you're speaking with and how far into the initiations, as I've said. So you could have Setites that are like, I know we're technically from Set, but Set is actually a snake god that lives in a rainbow.
Nice.
You know, which sounds cool.
Rainbows are nice.
Rainbows are pretty rad. So the core of the most common origin stories are based around the ancient Egyptian myths around Ra, Set, Osiris, Isis, and Horus. So that's what we're going to be going with our baseline, and then you can expound from there. So, Ra, first god, this is the one that popped out of the cosmic ocean. He had a fuckload of kids. There's a lot of myths about how he did that. Some of it just involves jerking off into the ocean. Some of it is fucking his own kids. Sometimes it's fucking some other entity that also sprung up. Too many different options.
They get wild.
Anyway, Ra has a bunch of kids. Those kids also have kids. Set and Osiris were among that brood of grandchildren. Set and Osiris have some sort of conflict. There's a bunch of different stories about what this conflict is. The most common one is Ra's getting old. He needs to find somebody to succeed him. He's looking amongst his grandchildren. Set, because he's like a mighty warrior, leader, king guy. Mm-hmm. He's the natural choice. But for some reason, Osiris gets it instead, or he's being nominated, or the two brothers are duking out, and whatever. That's the most common one. There's a bunch of other different conflicts they could be having. Some mirror the Cain and Abel story, some don't. Blah, blah, blah. However the fuck. There's some sort of conflict. Due to this conflict, Set kills Osiris.
All right.
Sometimes the body is just yeeted into the Nile. Sometimes it's yeeted across the entirety of the deserts in multiple pieces. Bunch of different ways this happens. Regardless.
He dead.
Osiris, for some reason, is brought back from death by Isis, who is his sister wife. And she's also like goddess of magic.
As you do.
They fuck.
As you do. When your sister wife
fucks your corpse, which is dead but also living.
Yeah, as you do.
Yeah, as you do. It's not. This is some very early in the human record monster fucking. That's what this is. So, Isis was a book talk girly. She fucked that monster that she made. Little Promethean. She's an early Mary Shelley. Anyways, Isis and Osiris have a child, Horus, the god with the hawk head that everybody has seen on the picture walls. Horus rises up and overthrows Set, which is why Horus is sometimes referred to as quote-unquote the Avenger.
The old Horus heresy.
Mm-hmm. And Horus is the god that all pharaohs are supposedly descended from because divine right king bullshit.
So he's the final one who gets that role.
Yes.
Okay.
This story can be told as everybody's a god and a cosmic entity. These are all mortals that ascended to godhood. These are all just some dudes. These are some dudes that become vampires. These people have always been vampires. Sometimes the vampires are vampire gods. I had a Pepe Sylvia board forming unironically trying to notate the different just canonically listed in World of Darkness versions of this origin story. I threw it out. I was like, it's too much.
You know those dice that they have that sometimes they have them for food and sometimes they have them for sex stuff where it's something and something. Mm-hmm. It sounds like they just had a bunch of those and just threw them through dice rollers sometimes. And they're like, it's going to be this, this, and this, and this, and this.
Yeah, because my dumb ass was like, okay, I kind of want to take what was a canonical origin stories for the Ministry and compare it to origin stories for Set that we have records of in the archaeological records. There's so many different versions of the Set story in the archaeological records, and then what was happening in World of Darkness, and I was just like, this is too fucking much. So I went too deep, guys. I dug too deep. I had to back out.
Do you think they were trying to mirror the lack of a singular origin story for Set in their backstory for the Ministry? I
would think, and also just a lot of religious parables have lots of different versions.
Especially the older you get.
So people like stories, and we all like adding our own little tweak to stories, and because you add a little tweak that just causes a whole splintering branch of other fucking options that other people could also tweak. Right. So having the definitive, this is the word of God, you might just need to take a leap of faith on it. I'm just and this is coming from somebody who is very devoutly agnostic, and I'm just like, it doesn't matter. And it's fine. Just don't be a dickhead. So that's the brunt basis on that, where World of Darkness really picks that up and runs with it, is the post-defeat Set is either banished to the deserts to wander around, or he's banished to the Duat, which is the underworld, which, because of World of Darkness, the underworld's an actual place you could go to because it's another plane of reality.
So Set could just be wandering around, and you could go say hi.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Wouldn't be the only antediluvian that's probably hanging out in the underworld.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, if the version of the Duat is true to your canon of story, Set is the first vampire due to his defeating of the chaos snake god Apep and devouring his heart and therefore taking on his powers. So
Set would be Cain.
Set would be Cain because he
Nice.
made himself. Set would be better Cain because he made himself like that instead of like being a weird cry piss baby and like fuck you dad and also fuck you girlfriend mom.
Yeah.
How dare you teach me how to wear pants and do magic?
Instead,
could
his
you?
story involves girlfriend sisters.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
He's just a little less whiny about it.
He's a lot less whiny about it.
He seems actually kind of stoked about it.
Yeah, he's kind of into it. So if there's a version, the Set is banished to the desert by Ra for being an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he's like, I don't think I was the asshole.
Right.
Set was cursed by Ra and then wanders into the desert into the second city.
Huh.
And then is embraced and becomes among the third generation of Cain is also another version.
Okay.
So depending on which orthodoxy you're taking on the story, you're going to have some ministers that are going to follow the normal chain of generations.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have some that are very ardent that Set was one. So
Right.
I am 2 further steps up than you think.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to get confusing on that for
I
your
like it.
game for fun, feel free.
Yeah.
Either case, either because Set went into the underworld and then ate a chaos snake god's heart from the primal ocean where there's no light. Now the entire clan is like light sensitive.
Ah.
Or Ra because he's a sun god and he's like, fuck you, grandchild, no light for you, boof.
Right.
You got the debuff.
You got double and then he got double debuffed when he was embraced.
Yes.
Ow.
So that does kind of answer my question. Although they don't have a version of, it sounds like every other clan has like their version of how the second city fell.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like there is at least a version where they're there for it.
Potentially they could be. The ministry's history is really interesting because they suffer from like long period of isolation and then just scattered.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into.
So even just
Yes.
keep it with the origin
Yeah.
story. So he could have been embraced in the second city by Cain and then just left again before it even fell apart because he was just like, I'm not into this
Yeah, basically.
people thing.
He's just like, everyone here is terrible. I'm gonna go home. Which at that time it's like, well, Egypt's there, and then there's like the Sinai Peninsula, and you cut through the Levant, and then you get into like Syria, Iraq, that whole Fertile Crescent area,
Mm-hmm.
which is roughly where the first/second cities are said to be built.
All right.
But it could also be in Turkey. Technically, it's convoluted, but it's also potentially 6,000 years in the past, or 10,000 years in the past, or 15,000 years in the past. Who the fuck knows?
Interesting.
Not me.
Yeah.
Definitely not me.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I
if
don't
you
know.
find a vampire that's that old, I'm
Leave.
just gonna suggest run and pray they didn't
Well,
notice you.
Yeah, I was about to say you might not need to run because
If-
then you're just gonna die tired.
If it's
Yeah.
even if it's not written down and your storyteller doesn't even know exists, I'm sure that character has that 10th dot plot device discipline. If that
Yeah.
shows up in your game.
Yeah, that might be I storyteller didn't stat that.
There's a reason.
Everything fades to black. You wake up several nights later and you have something in your pocket.
Yes.
It's like one of my favorite things to do when somebody fucks around too much. It's like, in the canon, I should just kill you, but I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to scare the fuck out of you with no actual damage.
Or I
Mhm.
teach you a lesson.
Yeah.
Because even though they're old, why would I break decorum of an Elysium on someone like you?
You're assuming this is at an Elysium and that concept exists for them.
That's true.
There's also that.
That was just a way to play it without them just being like, oh, bye.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... or just like, now you're trapped in a mind maze.
I did that to someone once.
Yeah, it was rad as fuck. Anyways, so we're gonna start in the next stage of the beginning with Pharaonic Egypt. And insert walk like an Egyptian, all that kind of...
Let's go.
All you Egyptology kids with your big gold book that you've had since the 90s, you can crack that bitch open.
Ooh, the big gold book.
Did you not have that? I fucking love that book. Because there's the big gold one that had Egypt, and there was like a big red one that was like for dragons, and a bunch of other shit.
Oh, like the Dragonology and the Egyptology.
Yeah.
I didn't have them, but I read them at friends' houses.
Yeah.
Same.
I was given the Egyptology one because my parents thought it was like an actual like good science archaeological book, and then they realized it wasn't, and they're like, well, I guess they have this now.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna...
Don't believe this book I gave you, daughter.
My parents are the kind of nerds that actually bought me a book to teach myself how to read and write in hieroglyphs.
Nice. That's cool.
I am such... Oh, God. I'm such a fucking nerd. It's a problem. Anyways, the ministry ruled the society in Egypt, fairly isolated away from other vampires for ages. In the book, they say, like, roughly, like, 3,000 years. Because they're around the Nile, and then there's this big swath of desert, and then there's the Euphrates way over there. So just because of ancient times, they're like, people didn't walk that far. So they're just like, we vibed over here, y'all were over there. We just didn't interact, did our own thing. And Egypt was like pretty cool and chill and a good society for them, and had like a little bit of connection with like trades because people get on boats and row places.
Nile goes places.
Yeah, get on the Mediterranean, go down the coast a bit, and be like, hey, I have a fuckload of wheat. That's some cool pots. Just trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of shit.
I dig it.
Yeah, things people be doing. The fortunes of the clan rose and fell with the rise and fall of the power of the Egyptian Empire. The clan books do a really good job of delving into Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom, all that stuff. It's really cool. You don't really... For this, I was like, we don't need to get into that. If you really want to get into the minutia of ancient history, or if you want to run like an ancient Egypt set game, those books are actually fairly well written and map pretty well to actual ancient history, like checkpoints. I'm not gonna dig into that right now because you guys don't need to know about the Old Kingdom and the Middle Kingdom that much. It's fine.
Fair enough.
Which means they did suffer from the Sea People's invasions that the Lasombra did, where they wiped out a bunch of shit.
Womp womp.
Womp womp. It was not uncommon for Set, their god king ruler, to fall into torpor due to his great age, and he just would wake up when he was like, everybody's in trouble, fuck. Just tired dad syndrome.
Right.
That's the best way to explain it. Because in the books, they're like, yeah, Set has been kicking around since like 7,000 BCE, and some of the earliest records we have for early ancient Egypt is like 3,000 to 4,000 BCE. So by the time that empire starts, he's already been up for like 3,000 years.
Right.
And I'm like, ugh, he old.
Yeah.
He got the eepies.
He's got to go torpor, or else he's just going to eat everything around.
Yeah.
Just to stay not hungry.
Yeah. Which could also, yes, and infer a lot of the ideas around like mummification and resurrection that culture would have. So if you want to have your fantasy and reality parallel, there's those two things. Big highlight for them, big like, yes, shiny golden era was the Pharaoh Ramses II. If you want to look into Ramses II, there's tons and tons and tons of books and documentaries. Big important guy in the canon of ancient Egypt. I'm not going to dig into that too much. But his conquests and worship of Set allowed for a fusion of church and state in a way that the ministry did not have up until that point and kind of don't have ever again. Fully, or to that extent.
They try real hard.
Yeah. Ramses II was such a powerful and praised ruler that not only did the Setites, the area Lupines, the Bastets, which are like werecats, and the mages in the area were all able to put aside their differences to work for the nation state. Because they're all like,
Damn.
This guy's cool. Everything's going great. Hell yeah.
Wow.
Imagine a multi-splat utopia.
Toronto?
Yes. No, not wrong, but yes. And eventually all this comes crashing down, starting with the invasion of the Assyrian Empire in 670 BCE, which is one of the first big times the Banu Hakim pitted against the ministers. The Assyrians did get pushed out 10 years later, but it was not their last attempt, and there was just roving back and forth invasions, and you can dig into that if you want.
As you do in ancient cultures.
One of the Banu and the ministry not getting along times.
No, that's kind of one of the big first, like, comes over a sand dude points, fuck you, fuck you. And
actually, fuck you.
Yeah, and then it's just that for thousands of years. So, Alexander the Great, big important guy for the ministry, fucking loves this guy. And they pretty much claim him as a mortal Setite, and it is argued in the canon whether or not he was actually a follower of Set, or if he just kind of, on his own, paralleled their ideals so well that they're just like, this fucking guy. There is some claims within the ministry that they work together with a mage to help shape Alexander the Great from the womb.
What?
From his crazy mom bitch in Macedonia.
Yes.
For their purposes, and to try to like bring about a new era of, greatness and da-da-da-da.
Mm-hmm.
Are they capable of that? I'm not gonna say no.
Right.
But the ministry is also known to just say some shit.
Clan of Lies.
Yeah, but they also have a lot of documentation for the bullshit they say, where they're like, yeah, we fudge some of the details, but we do keep notes. We do have hella notes. We got hella scrolls.
Mm-hmm.
So
You could always find some mages from the area, see if they have records of that.
oh yeah, that would be definitely.
Their notes would be impeccable.
Depending
If they're around.
If the notes exist anymore, potentially. But that's one of those claims where it's like, I could see it, but that might also just be a load of bullshit, because they might have just been like, that guy just did a bunch of cool shit that we yes-anded. Hellenistic Egypt opened up the clan to traveling the known world, because, they got pulled into Alexander the Great's empire, so the Settites are like, oh shit, we can get on boats and just go from here to there to...
Sounds great.
World's our oyster. Hell yeah. And good times were had by many.
Not all, but many.
But not all, but many. During roughly around this time, and I do find this funny, there is a rumor that the Bruja Methuselah that laid in torpor within the ruins of Carthage may have been taken in by ministers for safekeeping within the labyrinth of bones in Tunis.
Yeah, so
I love that.
So when I mentioned last episode, I bet these guys would get along. They actually do, seemingly.
Yeah, I think...
Is it safekeeping as in, like, we're going to keep him safe, or is it safekeeping as in...
We're going to keep him.
We have your
in
Methuselah.
a safe.
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe a little column A, a little column B. It might also be a little, hey, these Bali things keep popping out of this fucking dirty hole in the ground. We need to keep these really powerful snack packs away from the demons.
Yeah.
That keep popping out of the ground like daisies.
Glad we did Salubri before this, huh?
Right? Yeah. And the Bruja saves a lot of...
Yeah, it works out.
Yeah. Saved me a lot of writing. But in the section where they're talking about Carthage, the ministry's very just like ho-hum about the idea of Carthage. They're just like, yeah, imagine running a successful and well-educated cosmopolitan city where you get to live among mortals as god kings. I couldn't fucking figure that shit out.
Never done that before.
For thousands of years. Yeah, there's this kind of feeling that the ministry is just like looking at the Bruja, and the Bruja's like, oh my god, Carthage, we've done all these things and ideas, and the minister's just like, bitch, I done been doing that.
They're just like hands to their side like, I got that. I have that.
I had that. I have that. I had that. I've been doing. Yeah, it's like, would you stop copying my homework?
Right.
Like...
You're not even paying me for it.
Right? It's just a very entertaining perspective on that whole situation. There's a section that they also talk about Cleopatra the 7th, who is the last pharaoh of Egypt. Yes, she was the 7th Cleopatra.
Turns out.
That genealogy is also fucked to hell, because there's also just a lot of incest.
As you do when you're trying to keep royal lines.
Yeah, it's just... bad timing. Surprisingly, the ministry had offered her no aid, because throughout these thousands of years, the ministers worked with the priest class, and they often describe the priest class as like priest mages, priest sorcerers, priest magicians. So I'm assuming a lot of the ancient Egyptian priests were also just fucking mages.
Yeah, very good chance.
Yeah, and they're also doing like their own blood sorceries and being homies and shit. But due to the Greek influence on the Egyptian population, it seemed set at that time's like, they ain't from here. She's not from the block. I ain't helping her for shit.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's just the lineage got too far away from the god's bloodline at that point, or if the pharaonic society at that point had gotten too wrapped up in the ideas of state and government power and therefore became agents of the Aeon. So Set's like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
But because of that, yeah, she didn't get any help, no aids, no teaching, no protections from the Settites at the time. And basically saw the conflicts happening between Egypt and Rome at that time as two foreign powers fighting, and he just like wasn't invested. Even though many Settites from that time period and through further historical records are like, Cleopatra would have been like the best Settite. Like she was like well educated, well spoken, was a great politician, was willing to fuck for, like, getting power, all this kind of shit. She would have been great. Shame we didn't embrace her.
Yeah.
And then Egypt fell to Rome.
Before we get there, so my question is, so that we still have set up and walking around at this point, and my history is not my strong point, but that seems like a pretty, compared to some of the others, seems like he's been kicking around a lot longer than some of the other clan firsts.
Yeah, like he's a lot more involved in his actual, like, administrative orders for his clan.
Yeah, he's sticking around, he's running stuff, he's not off causing problems, he's at home
He's at home causing problems. He's just like, look, I'm taking a long nap. Shit went to fuck. Hold on. Did you guys leave the gas on? Yeah. Just like this bitch. I don't like her.
It makes sense, though. Everyone else was kind of just out fucking around nonstop, and he's like, I got a city to run. I need a nap. So it makes sense he'd live the longest.
Yeah, because I am trying to remember this off the top of the dome, because I did not write this in the timeline. My bad. But I think the Egypt or Cleopatra, Julius Caesar, Mark Antony thing was like around 300 BCE, if I remember right, because I know it's like a little bit before Jesus, but like not a fuck ton.
I believe you.
I'm assuming there's history nerds just screeching at me on the other side of this mic.
Not my kind of nerd.
Yeah.
I was the kid who got yelled at for not showing his proof at math. That was I got this. History? Fair. Nope, too much memorizing shit.
I fucking love history. I actually was going to college initially to be a history major, but because of the unmedicated ADHD, the amount of like memorization you have to do is just fucking a nightmare.
Yeah, rote memorization, not my bag, baby.
Mark Antony and Cleopatra met in 42 BC.
Damn it! I was off by like 3 centuries. Fuck! So it was literally right before Jesus' time.
Yeah, right before.
Okay.
You know, in the big span of time, though.
Yeah, considering we're talking thousands and thousands of years, I'm not too bad.
Yeah.
Bonani who. Rome, was an interesting time for the ministry, because they went, oh, I can go up? So a bunch of ministers, instead of going wide, where they're like, oh yeah, I can go all the way to like Spain and Morocco, and go all the way out east to like India, and further west into like parts of West Africa, and da-da-da-da-da. They're like, oh, we can go north. So they started going up into Europe, and they were swapping out the Egyptian gods for Roman gods. And Rome, as we have talked about in the past, was full of loads of vampire cults. There's cult of Mithras and all that. So the Setites were kind of like, oh yeah, we are Mars cults and Bacchus cults. And
right.
And if you go further north, they might swap into some pagan stuff, but I hadn't seen too much about that written down. They seem to keep things a little bit Mediterranean.
Right.
Anyhow, and then Jesus woke up by being born, as he do.
Thanks, man.
He flipped the calendar over.
And that woke up Set.
Yeah, it did. And Jesus also woke up Set.
Man, babies be crying.
Yeah, well, as an adult, so baby crying, but yeah.
Oh.
It's really interesting because in the revised book, you have an actual Setite historian going over like the timeline, and he's like, okay, around this time is really weird because I only found a couple of letters that kind of maybe acknowledge Jesus as a guy, but like, which kind of goes along with what we have now is like, we're pretty sure he was a dude, but we don't have any direct like, this Jesus fella.
Right.
Giving out too many sandwiches. Problems.
Man, fuck sandwiches. Only I should have sandwiches.
Those fucking carpenters uppity. Yeah, none of that shit.
Go back to fishing.
Yeah. So he also acknowledges that, but he also acknowledges that the time period while Jesus was around between 0 and 33 Common Era, there's a couple of records that indicate that there's vampires in that area that are just going missing. Because there's archaeological letter evidence of people sending messages to each other just being like, hey, so I haven't heard from, Paul in a hot minute. Not that Paul, different Paul.
Okay. Yeah, he left with that weird Jesus guy.
Yeah, that's Paul from 2 Doors Down. But like the Paul I need, like Vampire Paul.
Oh, Vampire Paul.
Yeah, no one's heard from him.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in a minute.
Yeah. So there's just reports of like vampires going missing around that time.
Jesus Christ was in fact a vampire hunter.
Potentially. Jesus Christ, vampire hunter.
Bad movie, entertaining movie.
Does he team up with Abraham Lincoln later in like the sequel?
It can't ever be as good as Velocipaster.
I don't know about that. Tough competition, but
valid and fair. But yeah, it was just kind of neat to have this guy being like, hey, I know a clan's good at making up stuff. I'm not trying to do that. And this is like the brass tacks of what I have. But one thing we definitely know for sure is 33 CE, you know, the year that Jesus got nailed to that tree. Set woke the fuck up from a really long torpor, and he was angry.
Pissed.
He was so angry that storms and maelstroms on Earth, like, rolled and roiled and made loud noises and all sorts of problems. And he was also screaming and shouting commands and prophecies. And all of this was done with so much force that Setites from Roman Britain all the way into, you know, ancient India could hear this shit.
Damn.
Which is bananas. And he went on to this for several nights. Did not sleep. Was just constantly up and screaming and raging and throwing the world's biggest panic attack, I guess is the best way to explain it. You ever panic attack so hard that you, like, change weather patterns?
Yeah, a couple times.
Yeah. So that's what happened. And eventually, Set just collapses from many days of doing this.
Okay.
And, unfortunately, because of his constant screaming and freaking out, many others in the clan also just for days could not get day sleep. They just like, I want to. I'm feeling the urge, but Dad won't stop screaming. And I'm scared. Right. But he's also giving us prophecies and commands of just, what the fuck? What is happening?
That's crazy. Similar along what lines what happened to the Ravnos during the Week of Nightmares, but he was just woke up on the wrong side of the bed. He wasn't even dying or anything.
Yeah.
He just woke up and the whole clan was like, oh, fuck.
Fucking god damn it. Oh, and it's terrifying. And then he passed out, and then everybody's like, okay, fine, I can rest. And then the next night cycle, people went to go check his sarcophagus, because of course homie's sleeping in a stone sarcophagus.
Badass.
Gotta be on brand. The stone sarcophagus was found shattered and exploded, like chunks of the rock were embedded in the stone ceiling.
Oh.
Kind of shit. And his body was gone.
Huh, nice.
So, if he's alive or dead, supposedly in the canon, Set hasn't been heard of since what I'm calling, quote-unquote, the Jesus incident.
So, not to upset anyone.
Yeah.
But from what I'm taking from last episode and this episode and combining in my head, if we want to go with the Setite, and I've heard other people, either occultists or other, that a lot of the religions have the gods come from the same origin story and all that. Could Jesus have actually been Osiris coming back and getting revenge on his brother again?
There is one line of thought for that, yes. That is one of many cultic thoughts.
That's my first thought in reading that, considering Jesus was around and all of a sudden Set just like
popped off.
Had a nightmare for a week and then exploded.
Had a waking nightmare, like could not sleep, was just freaking the fuck out.
He got Jesus.
He got it right in the Jesus.
Or Osiris, I guess.
Yeah.
Jeebust.
You got Jeebust. So yeah, it was just fun reading about that. Like, yeah, no, he's like an active and actually kind of relatively active considering the long torpors, but it's fairly like out of all of the quote unquote antediluvians, one of the less problematic ones, despite, you know, it being Setites in the ministry, and everyone's like, oh my god, they're bad, they're always doing bad things. And I'm like, he kind of just like running his own empire.
And then he screamed for a week and exploded.
Yeah, you ever just rage against the machine so hard you explode a stone sarcophagus?
Yeah, a couple times.
Yeah, it happens.
I do like the idea, and they kind of like makes him the opposite of like the Salubri, I guess. But like the clan was doing pretty well until he left, and that's when they get up to their fuck shit, really? Or were they kind of always that
They're
way?
always kind of doing that because, you know, the whole point of going through these extreme acts is to essentially reach spiritual enlightenment.
Yeah.
But they do it in stages and, you know, making sure people are able to, quote unquote, handle it. Because, you know, if you break through the matrix too soon, you just go insane or die. Yeah. It's like, and you can't keep learning if you're dead.
That's kind of true.
So there's that. We will the ministry kind of goes okay for a while, even though Set's gone. Because the clan's like, because unlike the Ravenos, when Set basically explodes, the ministry's not like, okay, our clan feels broken and a bunch of us didn't die. Like, the clan just kind of proceeds as normal.
They're like, well, shit.
I was like, oh shit, Dad exploded.
Well,
Anyways,
I guess better get back to it.
Yeah. Well, so they might just be like, I guess he's in the do-what.
I guess that makes sense, because, like, compared to some other clans, like, they have just been kind of running their own show for so long that they kind of have a structure set out for them anyway.
Yeah. Whereas,
like, the Slubri were just kind of left alone.
Yeah.
And they're, like, but they were left waiting, like, oh, he'll come back.
Yeah, the Slubri kind of read to me as, like, homeschool kids whose parents, like, always did their laundry for them, always made lunch, and then they went to college and just had no life skills.
Yeah.
As opposed to the ministry, who are more, like, latchkey kids. We're like, yeah, mom and dad are there and they'll teach you some life skills and shit, but, like, you know, you can take care of yourself, you're fine. Like,
don't burn down the house.
Yeah, don't burn down the house. I'll help you with your homework when I'm awake from my nap, I guess. You did what?
Great job.
Okay. Yeah, kind of how it reads. So throughout the Dark Ages, that was not a good time for anybody, including the Setites. And as much as the ministry did not like, you know, those who followed Osiris and Horus and all the other Egyptian gods, they're just like shaking a fist. The Christians were so much worse of a problem for them.
Jesus exploded Dad. Yeah. And now you guys are worshiping him. That's not cool.
That's not cool. The canon notes an interesting problem. So due to the doctrine of Christianity giving a piece of the divine to their priests and followers, Christians, as followers, could wield powers that at the time compared to that of mages with no training and no avatar. So there was this weird amount of time in very early Christendom where there's accounts of the Setites just being like, yeah, there's these people that are just like really hopped up on this Jesus cult thing. I don't know what the fuck's going on, but they're like setting people on fire. And like doing weird miracles and like they're doing mage shit, but they're not mages.
I don't get it.
I don't know what the fuck's going on.
You could run wild with it in the current 5th edition, but that could also tie into some of the lore that was thrown away from Hunter.
Yeah, so like some of the old Hunter the Reckoning stuff.
Yeah, which is hinted at in H5, but you have to know it to see it. There's not a whole lot there, but like...
Yeah, there's also, because with Vampire 5th Ed, there's a big chunk of stuff on True Faith for mortals and stuff with Second Inquisition and True Faith and St. Leopold and various other faiths. I'm just like... So instead of religion being held up with like a priest class and having special cults and stuff and secret knowledge, since it's more proselytized to the people, did you just have a bunch of people suddenly just being like, I can kick ass for the Lord? And then they finger shoot an arrow because they don't have guns. They can't finger gun. Finger sling. They finger sling at a vampire, and then the vampire just fucking catches fire and they're just like, oh shit.
That's the first time I've tried that. Gotta try it again.
Yeah, that dirty hippie was right. So yeah, that was just kind of a wild, like, thing to read in the canon, because I don't remember ever reading that before, where I was like, wait, people were what now? In World of Darkness canon? Jesus fucking God. That's crazy.
That's intensely interesting, actually.
Yeah. So having that knowledge, especially in the light of 5th Ed now with the Second Inquisition, you're just like, do I need to start giving NPCs more true faith?
Or some of them, anyway.
Like one or two, just be like, really fucking good at it? I don't know.
Because I assume in this time period there would be a lot more really, really devout people. Because, like, yeah, that Jesus dude was my neighbor. But, like...
Yeah, like, I saw him. I seen it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing I found with the noting of the potential true faith just randos is, once Emperor Constantine made Christianity the official faith of the Roman Empire, that somehow cut down the fanatical miracle workers. So there's, like, a lot more Christians, but there weren't as many, like, true faith-esque fanatics around anymore, because it was just made a common religion.
Interesting.
And
it almost says to me like something about the overall entirety of the belief being watered down by so many people who maybe don't have that same level of conviction.
Yeah, and in that portion of early Christianity, there's a lot of clashing between them and pagans. Fuck, I feel so bad. Oh, Agora. Agora is a really great film that kind of is a historical dramatization of that time period, especially around Alexandria, about the conflict between Roman pagans, Alexandria living Jews, and early Roman Christians, and all of the conflicts that those societies were dealing with at the time, which is roughly around this time. Great film. Fucking love it. But yeah, there's also some thoughts in the canon about how this somehow tied their persecution of pagans and other non-believers into watering down their ability to wield this magic, not magic. That was like nuking all these vampires, particularly Setites, from orbit, and they're like, oh, okay, cool, we can breathe now. They are not able to set me on fire with their brain anymore.
Yay!
Cool, love that for me. But it also kind of parallels some thoughts with the ministry, where because the religion was accepted by society, it becomes now a tool of the aeons, so therefore disconnects humanity from the direct connection to the divine and none. So it's like, I'm like, did Jesus willpower himself so hard he basically yes-anded the ministry's belief on attaining power through free will and taught that to people?
Maybe.
I don't know. That's just an interesting, like, well, that happened. Anyways, so Christian persecution, along with the rise of Islam, not terribly long after this, pushed the ministry underground and severed their connections from their far-flung cousins. So all the mystery that existed in all these other places were just like, well, I can't go there anymore, because if I do, I have to go past these other religious assholes that will murder the shit out of me.
Interesting.
So they're just like, oh yeah, I can't be openly a Egyptian priest god, because that's a big no-no now. So, whoops.
Gotta be quiet, Egyptian priest god.
Yeah, and fun note, Minister Catal and his children of Judas were invited to Constantinople by Archangel Michael, and they decided to test the strength of his hold on that city and his belief in his dream. And he lost.
Michael lost?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The children of Judas were later put down by others in the clan due to their lowering Set from being a god to a devil, which somehow made him a kind of common evil instead of the divine liberator that he is. So the children of Judas kind of were like, I accidentally did a heresy. While they were just being like, hey, Archangel Michael, you're just like this paragon of the aeons in society and having a structured order and all these things. What if we just stop that?
They did their corruption shit so well. It
took down a whole city. Like one of the major cities at the time.
And then everyone else is like, oh no, the implications.
The implications. And along with the implications, there is the proclamation of red tears.
Oh no.
Which is also very metal, but also a bad time. So the ministers were torn on what to do about the Crusades. Because technically, they didn't have a pony or a dog in that race, because they're like, well, we're not Muslim and we're not Christian, so why do we give a fuck?
Fair question.
Yeah, which is fair. So a lot of them stayed out of it, and then other ministers were like, hey, what if I profited by getting these two idiots to kill each other, and I don't have to deal with it anymore?
I mean...
Also, them not being a fan of the Banu, I could see them pushing, even supporting the Christians a little bit, just to be like, get rid of them.
Yeah, it's like, we super don't like the Banu, and then depending on where you are in the ministry, you'd be like, I super don't like the Ventru. Oh, they're fighting against each other? Oh, that's fun.
Here's a bunch of money for both of you.
Yeah! It's like, hey, I heard this guy said some shit about your mom, and I heard this guy over here also said some shit about your mom. You guys should, oh my god, look, there's these fucking swords. It's strange how they're so cheap now.
It's so strange they're just sitting here in the middle of this field.
Maybe you should kill some people. Anywho, while the Crusades did put a big pit in the enemies of Set, forcing them to fight against each other, this also did build up Islamic forces in the areas, because they're just like, oh shit, we gotta fight these fucking Christians from Europe, just keep coming down to my house and setting everything on fire. I gotta build an army. When the Christians aren't here, they're like, oh hey, these Setites. I have an army with a fuckload of swords. Thanks for selling these to us.
Damn.
Yeah.
God damn it. Muslims despise vampires far more than their Christian counterparts, it turns out.
All right.
Drinking blood, super not haram. And a bunch of other things the Setites do are super like, no, this is all bad. Do not like. Which makes being a Muslim vampire very interesting, but we'll get into that later. So this put the Setites under their own inquisition nearly a century before their European brethren.
Damn it.
Yup. And this was led by Bayars, also known as Abu al Futu, which is roughly translates to the father of conquest. He was a big deal in Egyptian history of being a guy that's like, hi, I fight for Allah, which is my god, and I'm gonna do a bunch of conquering and kicking ass and do a cool empire. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of cool military history stuff about that. I don't have time for that right now.
So is this the canonical actual beginning of the Second Inquisition?
Technically, the Setites got it in the dick really hard during the Dark Ages. Because this guy's kicking around in like the 1200s.
This is kind of more setting that up than a part of it. Okay.
Yeah, so the Setites, because of the Crusades, unfortunately had to deal with their rolling start of the First Inquisition before everybody else.
Yeah, the First Inquisition.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, just due to the rise of various Muslim empires in the area they also cohabitated in, and just getting the shit kicked out of them.
Bummer.
Yeah, which is rough. While all the other European vampires are like, well, I looted all this stuff from the Middle East, and now I'm back home, and now I'm just gonna be in my castle fighting other dudes also in castles on horses and dealing with a plague and things.
As you do.
Yeah. So they're just chilling up north, vibing, in that time period, and the Setites are just like, oh my god, everything is on fire.
Can we please not?
Can we stop murdering? I get I'm too horny. I get it. I need you to stop murdering me.
What I really need you to do is meet me halfway and get a little bit more horny. Please.
Slightly more horny. Slightly less stabby.
But more trustworthy than the Tremere.
Yes.
Sorry, more trustworthy than the Toreador. They're getting there on the horny.
Yeah.
We get that. But it's what comes after that I'm worried about.
Yeah.
I just need them to chill out a little bit.
Yeah.
Someone else to catch up to them, please.
Yeah. So these purges became so intense, particularly because this became a united front between mortal Muslims as well as Muslim mages. Oh my god.
Oh.
There's
All
too
right.
many M's. So Muslim mortals and Muslim mages united together and went like, we're gonna kick these fucking guys' ass because they're fucking terrible. They're monsters. Against the book, all that kind of shit. All the hadiths say no.
Right. Look at those ankles.
Yeah, and various other things. But yes.
Fangs.
Yeah. It's just
Fangs.
unholy monsters that are against God and creation and life. And
They want to tempt us.
Yes, all that kind of shit. So because of this united natural and supernatural front, this destroyed several of the foundational temples of the ministry and are just gone.
Damn.
Things that have existed for literally aeons.
Yeah.
Gone. And this pushed the ministry basically to abandon ship. So with the proclamation of Red Tears, the clan gathered as many of their scrolls and treasures as they could, burned their temples behind them, and fled Egypt.
Damn.
They're just like, fuck.
Damn. That's
so,
intense.
Yeah, this is one of the first clans that almost got nuked from orbit. But in ancient times, they had to do it one temple at a time.
Go, go, go.
Yeah, it's a bad time. So basically at this point, the ministers become a diaspora of the clan.
Is there, just curious, if you looked in the history of time, is there a diaspora around the same time, in the same place going on, that you could tie that to in the area?
Yeah, because there's a lot of... I'm not super versed on Middle Eastern history, but from my understanding with the rise of Islam, and this is definitely coincides with a lot of like the golden age of Islam, or at least the start of that.
We're coming out of the Crusades and stuff.
Yeah, we're coming out of the Crusades. We're getting into the part where they're like, hey, we got all these like great libraries and we're discovering algebra and all sorts of cool science
Quote
things.
unquote discovering algebra.
Yeah. No, they did algebra.
Okay.
Yeah. A great library, Baghdad. It was a part of the world where, like...
100%. Sorry, for some reason I was still at the European. I was skipped ahead.
You skipped ahead.
I
No,
looked
it's
at
cool.
European.
Yeah. No, we're still in the Middle East right now.
They didn't discover it, but...
And you're like, wait, it's called algebra. Hold on.
Yeah.
No, you're good. But yeah, with the rise of Islam, before it gets to like truly in the golden age where they're more accepting of Jews and Christians because they're like part of the book, and like non-believers and various things because they're like, hey, studying things in science is cool for our society, so we should do that. As with most cultures, when there's a rise of a new thing, they're like, well, we gotta purge the old thing. Goodbye, pagans.
Okay.
So,
yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. There's probably a lot of like parallels to other things that were happening in that area. I'm not as versed on it. I should be as a global citizen, but that's where I'm at right now. So, Convention of Thorns. Setites didn't really bother with it. That's kind of a well-known. They're just like, yeah, we got an invite.
Did they even have anyone show up, or are they just
No,
not a single one?
No,
I guess
they
at
did
that
not.
point, it's kind of one of those, like, why bother? None of the other clans, like, actually like them that much.
That's literally it, though. That was the kind of cool thing reading about this from the ministry side, because I hadn't really looked into it much, because I'm so digging into the other shit that I'm like, I just...
Yeah.
What the fuck does the ministry say about this? So, European vampires hardly offered any refuge to the Setites as they fled the early stages of the First Inquisition. And we're like, hey man, these mortals have, like, god powers, and they think we're the devil, and they're gonna murder everything. Like, we need help, and y'all need to pay attention to this shit.
Right.
And the European vampires are like,
who cares?
You guys are weird. You believe shit weird. You're, like, way too horny. And you keep fibbing about things, and, like, why do you keep bringing drugs?
You're gonna ask us for these one day, all right?
Yeah. So, because of that, the ministers were not so bothered about who won the first Anarch revolts, because when, the War of Princes resulted in the Youngers being like, I don't like you, old man, stop making me fight for your bullshit. Yeah, they just kind of sat back and were like, oh, this is interesting.
Go on now, kids.
They're just killing each other. Neat. I like that. And then, unfortunately, the Banu Hakim got involved because they're just like, yeah, we also don't like these Christian vampires. We're gonna help the Anarchs by funding them with our bullshit. And the minister's just like, oh, enemy spotted. I don't like that.
Oh, you gotta fuck with them now.
Yep. So while maintaining a forward-facing quote-unquote neutrality, the ministers fed secrets to the Camarilla, including the Young Tremere clan. These secrets did include how to defeat the Banu Hakim's own version of sorcery, along with setting up cults to support the Camarilla forces as they march their way to Alamut.
Damn.
Alamut is the secret stronghold for the Banu Hakim in the deserts. And Camarilla marched all the way up to the Alamut doors and tore down the giant stone doors that supposedly in canon, to this day, those stone doors are still on the ground as a reminder of the clan's hubris.
Damn.
It's like, fuck.
Yeah.
Just the might of the United European Vampires just showed up to the bottom and were like, we said no. And they're just like, fuck, okay, shit.
Calm down.
Fuck. We got it. You kicked your asses. These efforts is why the Camarilla extended an invite to the ministry. But they ultimately turned down this invite to the Camarilla because the Camarilla fundamentally goes against the religious beliefs.
Yeah.
That or strategically warring against the Sabbat and the Camarilla for centuries was just like not a vibe.
Right.
It's kind of left up to interpretation at which reason why they said no ultimately. It might have been a mix of both.
Yeah, they feel surprisingly, from what I had known about them before, very much like an Anarch clan. Even though they kind of worked against them.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't work against the Anarchs.
Just
they
specifically.
Just against the Banu Hakim, really.
Yeah, they were just like, initially like, you guys are assholes. You know it's good all these old rich fucks are dying. I don't care. And then the Banu showed up and they went, target acquired.
I care who wins.
I suddenly care now.
Yeah. Oh my god. It's like all the Swifties getting into football.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
they couldn't give less of a fuck.
Yeah.
And then Taylor fucks one football man.
The sport is saved.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't like the amount of power we give that one white woman. I think she's very mid.
Watch out.
I don't care. I've said what I said. You're like, I'm not getting involved.
I don't care.
That's okay. So, moving forward. So, the ministers in Africa had lost their connections to their Egyptian counterparts and became deeply entrenched in their own local cultures. The children of Dambala remained in West Africa, with many of their families being torn apart due to the transatlantic slave trade.
Fuck.
Yeah, that's a terrible time. There's also a lot of history that you should go learn and research about. This is also something I was like, I'm going to do a bunch of research on this, and one, fucking, oh god, not good for your brain health, because it's sad, and you should be sad, because it sucks. But also, there's just a lot of issues with the local cultures and tribes and customs that I am not accustomed with, because it's not my cultural background, so I didn't want to be spouting off some nonsense that I don't have the full information on, so I'm not gonna. But chattel slavery's bad. Bad time, don't agree with it. But it did happen. It did affect the clan's canon. Shockingly. So, cultists that had been kidnapped, mortal ones, supposedly, kidnapped from West Africa, ended up in the Caribbean. eventually escaped, became sailors, and sailed back home. And we're like, hey guys, you won't believe what the fuck they're doing over there.
It's not fun.
It's bad. This is terrible. This is one of the worst atrocities known to man. And supposedly people in the ministry in that area went, we agree, this is bad. So they sent a minister on a slave boat.
Hell yeah.
In the canon. This is canon, guys. I'm not making this. This is what the book said. And I'm laughing just because I'm like, this is cool, but also deeply uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, you know what? I'm glad somebody was like, fuck this shit. I'm gonna go fight this. But supposedly, this elder landed on the island of Hispaniola, and today we would know this as the island nation of Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Mm-hmm. But by the time he got there by this slow-ass boat, the revolts had kind of already been going on. So he's just like, oh, cool, you did it. Good job. I'm going to help maintain things here. And according to local legend, that elder lays in torpor somewhere on the island, and the cult just continues his practices as the Serpents of Light.
All right.
Nice. So that's where they came from.
Yeah. That's one origin story that they give. I don't know if that's 100% true or not.
I do like that he got there and they were already doing it. And he's like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I am glad that that's how it was written, because I think it would be shitty to be like, oh yeah, these human beings couldn't possibly organize and decide that the situation they're in is terrible and say, fuck this shit on their own. They needed a supernatural monster to do that.
Right.
So I'm like, good job avoiding that pitfall, guys. World of Darkness gets a gold star for me today. Hooray. There also are conflicting stories of how many of the African ministers were aware, what they knew, who knew what, were people involved on both sides of the trade. It's messy. It's a lot. I'm going to say I'm too palm-colored for that discussion and move on. But it's there in the canon. Do with that what you're going to do. The Ottoman Empire was pretty good vibes from ministry.
Yay.
Which I know sounds weird because you're like, that's a Muslim empire from Turkey. Why did that work well for them? So the tensions between the military and the servant classes was a great system because it basically had a lot of political intrigue and all this kind of stuff. That the ministers were just like, I can work this perfectly. Fantastic for me. Reading about the Ottoman Empire is really cool and a kind of a neat history thing to do. I recommend you do it if you got a chance. It's also complicated and went on for many, 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 many centuries. I don't have time to dissect that right now. But it is an empire that is known for slowly decaying. And the ministers are like, yeah, that kind of slow decay kind of worked for us. Because it kept the government from being too powerful and efficient to really, like, decide to set all of us on fire again. We might have a little clan trauma about that. And I'm like, you know what? That's fair.
Yeah.
There's also the issues of colonization in the New World. As there always is in every episode that we talk about.
Yep.
So when European vampires got to the Americas and they're like, fuck, there's people here. Fuck, there's vampires here. That's weird. That is a weird time. The conflicts are interesting to read about from that time period because it seems more of what happened was the local vampires were claiming to be descended from their own god, and they ruled everything openly, and they didn't seem to technically be ministers or Setites, but they also just fit the bill exactly, so it's one of those, they're like, have you guys been here for so long you just completely lost all those roots?
You just forgot?
Or are you guys actually your own thing? It's kind of left open to interpretation, do with that what you're gonna do, I guess. There's lore sheets for these kinds of vampires also just being Hekata now.
Okay.
But there's also Hekata that work with the ministry now instead, so it's kind of a big fuzzy area. Mostly what ended up happening with these conflicts, because the local vampires the indigenous guys were like, hey, fuck you for coming into my house and trying to take my shit. That's fucked up. I'm gonna fight you. And a big, what's noted in the canon of what caused the problem for the indigenous vampires was the European vampires, their mortals brought smallpox, which decimated the cities and the power structures of the vampires. So if the city fell, the vampires would also fall with them. So there's rumors that these set-type vampires from the indigenous populations exist in like rural pockets all throughout South America still and are starting to slowly rebuild that power now, especially because the Sabbats kind of like fallen to the wayside. So that could be happening.
Right on.
Just a fuckload of just indigenous ministers just start popping up out of all parts of South and Central America now. But I think the conflicts, because I'd imagine it'd be horrifying for the Camarilla and Spot guys initially to be fighting these indigenous blood gods. To being like, oh, this guy didn't give a fuck about either of us. Fuck. I was gonna kick both our asses.
Oh,
shit. Okay. And he's got a bat made out of volcanic glass. Oh, no.
He is not fucking around, in fact.
So some of that could be kind of cool and neat, and some of that is a horrifying genocide. So handle that at your table as you will. Also, with the rise of the reason and sciences in Europe, with the Enlightenment and science, it opened a lot of doors for experimentation and temptation. So odds are, if you're any kind of like fancy lad, somebody with a parlor, any kind of that kind of stuff, there's going to be a Setite somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Just floating around. Just, just being like, you gonna do some like weird libertine sex fuck party? Hey man, I got this coffee thing you should really try out. Coffee, I can't believe. Ugh. And also like, hey, so I heard that you said fuck the king. You know what, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a sword.
Here's a gun. I have a lot of guns. So, there's a lot of implications about ministers being involved in the foundations of America, and all sorts of revolutions.
Mm.
Blech. Not gonna get into that. Not super important to the story. With the rise of European interest in the Middle East and Egypt, more specifically, the clan is able to like reconnect with its roots. All of the diaspora folks are just like, hey, all these people are starting to head back into the Middle East and Egypt for either history, research reasons, or profit.
Mm-hmm.
I should go along. And then they're like, oh yeah, we were from Egypt. We were gods.
Yeah.
We have all these things. And it caused a lot of strife internally in the clan because you had the old fucks that are just like, yeah, of course we've been Egyptians this whole time. Like, the fuck are you talking about? And then they're running into all the little pockets of ministers that like lost connection. And they're just like, no, you worship Set. And they're like, no, we're over here with the snake guy. It's like, yes, but no.
Close.
Like, he a little confused, but he got the spirit. But, it seems, at least in my reading of the canon, by the time you get to the 20th century, a lot of the Setite orthodoxy is kind of like, I'm tired. I don't have sure, whatever, you're doing Set's work, it's in the wrong font, but like, okay, fine.
Right.
It sounds like they got spread out and absorbed by so many different cultures that it would be kind of impossible to reunite them.
Like into one solitary, like, temple. Yeah, so the ministry just kind of eventually was like, yeah, we disagree on things, but, like, we're kind of you know what, this kind of works.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of our stuff's very localized, so we're hard to, like, uproot and remove, and we technically have thousands of years of, like, knowledge and riches and all sorts of cultural content. Honestly, we have a pretty good stuff. We're just gonna stop arguing amongst ourselves. Like, we do a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
Which
we can be buds.
Weirdly chill for vampires. This clan's weirdly chill. Until they're not.
I noticed the I think it was our first one, the language and how they will specifically use like code phrases to identify other members. And I like the idea of it being like, your shit's in the wrong font, but passcode phrase, returned passcode phrase. All right, we're cool.
Yeah, you said the thing in the Coptic language. I also said the thing in the Coptic. Okay, cool. Like, you're cool. We're in different clubs, but like, it's cool.
Yeah. You go stay on that side of town. I'll stay on this side of town. If you need me, give me a call.
Yeah. The biggest issue they have with all the interest in like Egypt and Egyptology and this like return to like studying ancient histories and things is all these archaeologists and treasure hunters keep digging up their old secrets and potentially expose their cult schemes and accidentally dig up ancient elders who have been slumbering for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Yeah.
Oops.
And then eat them.
And various other problems of like, yeah, imagine you found this like ancient scroll and you just are like, oh, what harm could come from reading a book? And you accidentally like read off some magic spell that just sets off like a bunch of problems.
Yeah.
And just all these ministers like, God fucking damn it!
Stop reading!
Or you get these like shitty treasure hunters that will find ancient scrolls, and because of people wanting trinkets at the local bazaar, they're cutting these scrolls into little fragments and selling them as like nifty trinkets, and they're just like, I have to now hunt down
every single one of those
and put it back together. We don't even have scotch tape yet. What the fuck? God damn it! Or it's like, I'm studying for my rites for doing this ritual, and then they get to the library and they realize the scroll I need's at the British Museum. Fuck.
Or worse, we haven't talked about them much yet, but it fell into the hands of the Arcanum, who tend to be a lot of treasure hunters.
Yup.
And now that information's in the hands of mages and the Second Inquisition.
Yeah, so you combine that with the fact that there are ministers that will just for, like, taboo reasons, like, feed nuggets of the stuff to people. So those vampires are like, you're just giving shit to people. You're just walking masquerade breaches. You're just going around slaughtering people. And they're like, no, they fucking just dug up Nebbet, who'd been down for like 1,000 years. And shockingly, when you pull a steak out of a vampire who's been in torpor that long, he eats the entire village. If you just left him in the box,
wouldn't be a problem.
It's not my fault. It is kind of funny, but I didn't do it on purpose. And then we get to a paragraph I found very interesting coming from a canonical Setite in the book. I'm just going to read it because it's content warning, it's a little heavy, but I thought it was interesting. So, my fellow historians propose many themes to sum up the departed 20th century. I choose genocide, that ugly word that the 20th century had to invent. The century began with the campaigns of starvation and massacre against the Armenians and the American Indians. It ended with the ethnic cleansing of Kosovo. And that's from Joshua Pangol, the Setite revised from page 34.
Shit.
Right? He not wrong, though. You're just like, fuck. It's bad when the minister's reading you to filth and you're just like, oh, I'm the bad guy.
Damn.
Fuck. But, with the 20th century, the rise of fascism, totalitarianism, nationalism, and global economics in conflicts big and small truly turned the world over in ways that favored the enemies of Set. Yeah, so ministers, super not into Nazis.
Yeah.
We found another clan, guys, that did not do... They did crimes. Don't get me wrong. There's been lots of crimes and slaughter and terrible things. They didn't do that.
Yay!
So good news.
Good job, guys.
Good job, ministry. You did not do Nazism.
That's like number 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
3 or 4, because I know it was like the Malkavians, the Gangrel.
Gangrel.
I thought they mostly had to go in hiding too.
The Gangrel, it was a mix. Like, some were super against it and worked against it, and some of them were just like, well, this is easy pickings.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They often weren't working for them. They were just like, we'll go take a snack over here from these suffering peoples.
Yeah, some of the Gangrel were gross in the... I mean, some would lean into like, well, they're into wolves. I can do wolf things.
Yeah.
But from my reading, it wasn't so much like they really bought into the ideology as so much it was a predator and this was easy pickings.
Right.
And I'm like, I hate that. I hate it. Set it on fire. Do not want. Slewberry weren't involved, but also there's just like not enough of them to be involved. So like, I don't know if I want to give that clan points because they didn't show up. So like, whoops. But yeah, ministry overall is just like, fuck Nazis, fuck fascism. They also were like, fuck Stalinism, Maoism, any kind of major totalitarian regime.
Makes sense.
Even if the ideas of these quote unquote revolutionary acts would seem to go along with their ideas, because the ideas involved entrapping and subjugating people, that was very inherently against the teachings of Set, and they're like, you're just an Aeon in disguise, get fucked. So yeah, that was fucking refreshing to read. Now, I'm not gonna say there are ministers that were like, well, we're gonna do our own small drug dealings and, you know, involved in other kinds of conflicts, but generally if there was some sort of like, even if it was like a quote-unquote small potatoes dictators and things like that, they tend to just not vibe with that at fucking all.
Right.
So we got one that's like kind of okay.
Hell yeah.
Good job, guys. There was a notable exception in the canon because there's a sect of Scandinavian Setites who, in the early Dark Ages, a bunch of them went super north and were living up in the Nordic areas, and they just kind of stayed. One of them was a major figurehead in Oslo, and unfortunately during World War II, he was apparently too friendly with the Germans, so he got removed from being on the Primogen Council there, but he's still around. But he's so old and he's so involved in like artisanal Nordic like crafting and metalworking and jewelry making that everybody just thinks he's a Toreador and he just doesn't correct them.
Okay then.
Okay.
So it's one of those like, that was the most problematic Nazi Setite I could find in the canon. Was one Nordic guy just being like, hey, these Nazis are fine, and everybody's like, no. And he's like, okay, I guess I'm grounded.
But then he was just vibing anyway.
Yeah, so I'm just like, I don't know if he really bought into it or if he was just like, oh, these people are paying for my crafts. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
What's this black sun thing you're doing? That is weird. I'm like, oh no, buddy, you can't. Anyways. So good news. That was the worst one I could find in that regard. There are some interesting things with the ministry claiming that they have the most opportunities and ability to adjust to the modern era with being able to be so flexible, and they've really kind of niched themselves into every nook and cranny across the entire globe.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also, hi, welcome to the 20th and 21st century, where we're all dealing with mass disillusionment with society and our standards and expectations and religious institutions and global economic institutions and political institutions. It'd be amazing if there was people that would come along just like, hey, I see you're real sad there about all the suffering in the world. Wouldn't it be great if you could, like, do something about it?
Yay!
Yay! Also, a fun note, while the ministry notes that the American political and military system does scream of the power of the Aeons and Osiris, American culture and heart truly belongs to Set. So all of our yeehaw, weird pop culture bullshit and extravagance and stuff, they're all just like, fuck yeah, we love the shit out of this. So there's a lot of Setites in the United States. Particularly because Marcus Vitale, with his whole taking over of Washington, D.C. and declaring it basically an anarch state, but not claiming to be part of the anarch revolts. Because he's just like, I'm breaking the cycles of jihad. Fuck all this shit.
So is he claiming Autarchus?
Essentially, yeah. But a lot of people in the second anarch revolts are calling him, like, king of the anarchs, which doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah.
But, like, okay. But because of that, a lot of ministers started floating their way into Washington, D.C.
Uh-oh.
Which is interesting.
Yes.
So V5 canon for the ministers. There's the Conclave of Paris. It's hard to say if old notes from the Convention of Thorns came to the surface. They're like, well, the ministers have helped us before. Maybe we can re-extend this invitation. Or if the Camarilla was just so fucking desperate after the Conclave of Prague with Theobald shooting off Hartstadt's head. They're just like, we just need bodies. Like, just, sure, bring the snakes in. Fuck it. I don't care. We just need people. But they did honestly try to work with the ministers to see if they could make them a new pillar of the tower, and the cover story of a NATO meeting ending in disaster barely covered up the masquerade and all that kind of stuff of the deaths of several important dignitaries on both sides of that supposed interaction. Yay. We're not saying that the Banu Hakim did the bombing or anything, wink. But there's also, like, the Tremere could have done it. There's a lot of options. It could have been the Second Inquisition.
Right.
Do with that what you will.
Could have been someone in the Camarilla who didn't want them joining.
Oh, yeah.
The Toreador seemed to have some ideas on who should join.
Yeah, they did. And there might have also just been other ministers that are like, how dare you?
That's true.
So there's a lot of suspects and options. You can explore that at your table as you will. But with the official rejection by the Camarilla combined with the Vermilion Wedding, having pushed the Banu Hakim into the arms of the Ivory Tower, this pushed the ministers into taking the other side of the conflict.
Of course.
Because anytime the Banu Hakim make a move to go somewhere, the ministers go, fuck that, I'm doing the opposite.
So now they are officially
They're officially anarchs. They picked a side finally, guys. After thousands of years.
They just have to wait for the Banu Hakim to.
Because
they're just like, I'm not sure which side I need to be on because I don't want to agree with that guy.
Does that make the ministry Kendrick in this conflict?
I don't know if the analogy works too well.
I don't know.
Well, the ministry.
I like the Banu Hakim first.
I also like the Banu Hakim, and I don't like Drake.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't think
I think the struggle's still happening between the two clans right now.
Yeah, it never really ended either.
It doesn't.
It's like always been going.
There's just bad blood for thousands of years, and I don't know if there's ever going to be a good... Because they're just diametrically opposed to each other ideologically, so I don't think there's going to be a good way to work that beef out, unfortunately.
You would almost need a complete destruction of one clan for it to end. Like, I don't really see it ending in almost any other way.
Or Gehenna to actually pop off, or the Second Inquisition to get so out of hand that everybody's just like...
They have to work together?
Yeah. Oh, that'd be such a good buddy cop movie, though. Just imagine a Precinct 13 situation, but there's like a Banu Hakim and a minister, and they have to work together to survive. There you go, guys. There's a one shot.
The minister's just busy convincing all the cops, look, we have to do all the meth in the stock room to be able to fight all these dudes off, okay?
Little did they know that minister is one of the warrior ministers, and everybody's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I did not know this drug-addled fucklord was actually
ready to kill.
Skilled. Yo. So the other big canonical thing for the ministry is surprise Setite city, Indianapolis.
Heyo.
Heyo. I'm kind of glad we're a Setite city. Canonically, it's super fun.
I like it.
And it also makes spookily way too much fucking sense.
Yeah.
So, Indianapolis is the first openly ministry city in the United States.
Nice.
Wild. I'm not gonna read all of the segment from the book, but I'm gonna give a couple little brief notes that I think are just kind of interesting for people to keep in mind. So, Indianapolis spent many years feigning to be either a Camarilla or a Sabbat city, just kind of depending on who roved into the area, and the ministers were just kind of hanging out underneath, just doing their own fucking thing. Mm-hmm. They're like, hey, as long as we don't rock the boat too much, we can just kind of do whatever the fuck we want.
Right.
And then the second Anarch Revolts happened, and this, combined with the renewed vigor of the ministers, pushed them into the open. But they're just like, well, we're Anarchs now. Fuck, it's our city.
We're Anarchs, and we're ministry, actually.
Yeah, we've been here the whole time.
So it's mostly the ministry and the Tremere here, right? Those are the two big ones?
No, I just ran Tremere because when I ran the game for us, it was before we had Let the Streets Run Red.
Okay.
I just thought the World's War Memorial downtown would just make a really cool chantry, and that's the entire reason I did that. Feel free to steal that for your home games, guys, because that's a cool, spooky building. Mm-hmm. I could also see it being like a cool, like, Setite temple if you just want to, like, not fuck with the Tremere.
Yeah.
So, especially because the World War Memorial on the far side has all the obelisks and the sphinxes and shit, and you're just like, why did you do that?
The design is wild.
Yeah, it causes a lot of, I'm going to say fundamentalist Christians that I've talked to that live here have all sorts of, like, weird theories about people, like, sacrificing children on the lawn there. Like, it's wild what some of them think, and I'm like, sure. Did you want something on this sandwich or no? Okay.
Plain, please.
Oh God, I just
no cheese.
I'm trying to land this conversation and they just fucking won't. Because my dumb brain was like, you have a conspiracy theory about downtown? Sure, buddy, lay it on me. I'm curious. And then I hit their hyperfixation and just I can't escape.
I had a weird Uber ride today. The guy was mostly pleasant and making me listen to, like, the local Christian radio station. Mm-hmm. So that was just bad music. Nothing against Christians and them enjoying music, but the radio station, not bangers, I'm going to say.
Yeah, no.
It sounded like one song for my 20-minute ride.
Gross.
But nice guy. And then it slowly drifted into his, like, pedophile conspiracy about Uber. And then I kind of like, oh, that's funny. And then ignored him.
Wild. No. So, yeah. There's that. Things I wanted to add about Indianapolis is Indianapolis used to be the population center of the United States for many, many decades. Like, we had a placard downtown that would just slowly get moved as people's population densities changed. But the population density in the United States changed so much, it's like fucked off somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So we don't have it anymore technically, but we did. It is also exists in the heartland of America. You'll see that slapped over so many fucking things in this area. It is also in the cross sections of the Rust Belt and the Bible Belt. So you have industry and religion just right on top of each other. So that's fun. And it's also the crossroads of America. And Set is in the heart of America. Because if you think about it, if this is a Setite city and we are, like, in the heartland, in the center, like, the center of our city is called the Circle Center. Mm-hmm. With an obelisk. Like, it's bananas.
I'm in.
I'm like, fuck, guys. You called it. It's so good. And there's so many fucking churches.
Yeah.
So many fucking churches. And we're also technically the start of the Jim Jones People's Temple.
Yeah, they started here.
They started here. I used to live in the neighborhood, like, right where that church building is.
Yeah, I think it's still there.
Yeah, it is. I've had people tell me they've seen the old signage in the basement of that building, but I don't believe them.
I want to go and
picture it didn't happen.
Exactly. I'm just like, I don't believe you at all. Yeah. So I just find it interesting that on top of my own conspiracy theories about Marcus Vitale being in Washington, D.C., and then Indianapolis also having the same Masonic architect design both downtown areas. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, well, if the Ministry canonically started in Beckett's Jihad Diary because of Marcus Vitale going to Washington, D.C. to work with him, is it because they were already fucking here and they've been working with him the entire time?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm just giving my own conspiracy theories and
the
thoughts.
Freemasons are run by the Setites.
Yes, I would not doubt that for a fucking second. At fucking all. Not at all. It's wild. Anywho, for those who wish to explore this and more, check out the Adventure Innocence in Blood module in the Let the Streets Run Red expansion for the V5 Chicago by Night series. It's a good adventure. I've run it for people. It's a good time. It's also weird that lots of my local areas and places I go to are just now World of Darkness canon. Mm-hmm. I'm still not used to it.
You know what? I'm going to go back for a half second because I just thought of something. I think it's interesting that also Indianapolis is like the one like dot of not hella conservatism in Indiana. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, the Ministry has it.
Yeah. And
so why would it be super conservative?
And we're a city that's, for the Midwest, fairly diverse. Demographics wise,
we have one of the densest populations of Asian people in the U.S. is in Lafayette, and that's a fairly liberal city.
Yeah,
and so is Bloomington.
Yeah. Bloomington's fairly liberal. I have a lot of opinions about Bloomington. I'll share that with people privately because I don't want to get sued for slander. But
they got more to worry about than suing a podcast as a city.
They do.
Yeah, they should probably check up on all those people going missing.
Yeah, and the rampant sexual assault. Cover your drinks when you're in that city. I'm just being completely fucking honest. But yeah, and it's just, if you especially look at like the road networks with the United States and how it just kind of centralizes Indianapolis and like spreads out, it's just kind of one of those slap the Ministry shit on top of that and you're just like, holy fuck. For that being an anarch city, it's like, oh, I guess they
got a good one.
If you want to run a chronicle where you're setting up the second anarch free states, you got a bunch of material to work with. Anywho, I'm just throwing that shit out. So major players and leaders in the Ministry, they don't really have any canonical major, like, this guy's important for the whole entire clan, because it's just a nebulous network of people. I did want to point out the term Hierophants is major religious leaders within the clan. Usually Hierophants are like the top of the top of the top, like major guys. So if that term comes up, that's kind of a big deal. I did want to bring up Hesha Rahazd. I feel so bad I cannot say this last name. I'm also very tired, and I'm sorry I'm running on 5 hours of sleep. But Hesha is a well-respected archaeologist and vampire historian hailing from the Egypt-Sudan border region originally. He's a very powerful elder who is said to be able to speak, or at least hear Set through the power of his blood.
Nice.
There's a good indication with the end of his stuff at the end of the Setite Revised book that Set's not dead.
Yeah.
But do with that what you want. You can also read about him in Beckett's Jihad Diary. He's the cover character of the Setite Revised book. That art fucking slaps. It is so cool. And he's also got a lore sheet in the Anarch book.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Buddy.
Hell yeah. Very cool guy. Cool character. I enjoy him. Good time. It's also nice to have a minister NPC that isn't like, yeah, it's just a person of color that slangs drugs and that's all they do. And I'm like, can we shake this up a little bit? Just so, woo, cool. Lore sheets that are clan specific. I didn't find any that were like, this is for the Ministry only. The Ministry kinda, I would say, as far as all the clans goes, gotten like the most shafted by the current canonical writers, in my opinion. I would like to see more for them, considering there's so much you can do for them. And they are like a major power mover for the Anarch movement. That would be sick. But if you're somebody who's interested in playing this, there are several amalgams, cult rituals, blood sorceries, and lore sheets, especially in the Cult of the Blood Gods book collection, that you can stack together to add more oomph to however you're wishing to run your minister character. So, we got to the end.
Woo! Nice.
Holy shit.
It's a lot.
This is a lot. This was so much. I hope everybody was okay with this. What are your thoughts, friends? Neighbors?
I'm tired.
I'm
Beyond
tired.
that.
Yes.
I like them. I think they're cool. I learned a lot. This is a clan that, like I said last episode, I think, has never really come up, never really had anyone play them, and they just haven't really shown up much as NPCs of note either. So they were a bigger blind spot than I think I knew going into it, but definitely a really interesting one.
Yeah. NPC I'm going to check out from the Chicago by Night core book. for 5th ed that I enjoy. His name is Aluk. He is a art gallery owner. He's also blind, which is kind of cool. So if you want, disability representation in your game, but he also fucks, and he's constantly having like art battles with the Primogen Toreador, and there's some other like spicy romance plot things as well. And I love him to death. He's fantastic. And he's one of the better written NPC ministers in the new run that we've had so far. I would love there to be more. There's probably more that I just haven't run into because there's modules I haven't run yet.
That's fair.
So
I am way behind on the pre-written stuff.
Yeah. And there's tons of stuff in the Cults of the Blood Gods that if you're a minister and you're really willing to dig into using that old-time religion, tons of resources in that book that you can just be like, yoink, this is for me, I'ma do it me. But you also don't have to run your minister super religious. Like, I've had a minister character I made for myself who was a philosophical Satanist.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the ministers really don't like that. Canonically, I found out after I did it. And I was like, oh, I was a problem. Oh, well. But yeah.
I don't really get why. It's still like, the adversary, the like upping of societal norms.
It's when you get to the
upending.
Setite orthodoxy, especially because I was playing a character that wasn't acknowledging Set as real. It was like, I don't care. Like, that's not the point.
Not just that, I think it also ties into earlier when we were talking about it. It's like, yes, we hate the people who worship the other Egyptian gods, but we hate the Christians more.
Yeah.
So it's like I think it's the hatred towards the Abrahamic religions that they're just not down with.
Yeah.
I think tying into Lucifer and Satan is essentially in a way acknowledging Christianity, the religion that tried to wipe them out.
Yeah, well, it's like, that's why I was going through of like philosophical Satanism, where instead of like, I don't believe in Abrahamic God, I don't believe in Abrahamic concepts of like Lucifer, I'm using these as metaphors and archetypes to explain the philosophy.
Well, I understand that section, but I'm saying if you're a really old dude who worships Set, and then some guy who says he's your brother is like, actually, I'm into those guys who tried to kill you, but only metaphorically. It'd be like, fuck you.
I would,
like if you're
I would kind of
priest.
I would kind of argue that Satanists did not try to kill them. Christians did.
Yeah.
And Satanists, if they are like, the more cerebral than we're actually worshiping Satan, they're still adversaries of Christianity.
Yeah. There might be...
They do base their shit in Abrahamic religions, but they are still an adversary of, the Christian faith. So
yeah.
I could also totally see a minister being like, you're getting it wrong, but I see what you're doing, and I dig it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it would depend
bring you
on the
into
individual.
the first... Yeah, it's like I can bring you to the first circle. And there might be some old Setites based off of the issues with, like, the children of Judas being like, oh, we've seen this rodeo.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna go crazy. No. So... you can have your funs with that. Skipper, did you have any final thoughts, concerns?
Not concerns, more like I want to play a minister now.
Yeah!
I want to tempt. I like tempting people with things.
Yes. Also, I think it would be cool. I think it would be really fun to run a one-shot where everybody plays a minister, but they're of, like, different ideologies and cultural backgrounds, and they all just, like, have a meeting and discuss how they're gonna fucking fuck up shit with the Camarilla.
I love it.
I feel like that would be so much fun.
Look, I saw Ban Hakim walk in the city the other day.
Everyone's like, we're gonna go get him.
Got it.
We're gonna fuck that guy's day up.
Beep, 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 beep. Targeting acquired.
We've got to kill the sheriff. He's a Ban Hakim.
Excellent.
Perfect. Let's go.
Let's go. Well, I want to push him to see how far we can push him before he fucks snaps. Because, like, yeah, we could just kill him.
We've got to get to the point where the prince allows us to kill him.
But what if instead, hear me out, we frustrate him so much that he just, forgets his principles and just kills a guy against his own code of honor.
I like it.
Disproving, his wherewithal for, like, order and justice in society.
Right, yeah.
And then we kill
guy
him.
who wasn't even really worth it. If that's his last memory.
Yeah.
Ooh, so good.
Yeah, knowing that he fucked up and that he fucked up because he failed the test.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we throw a snake at him.
In the box.
Yeah.
Snake in the box.
Snake in the box.
It's the snake box.
Snake box. Oh no, it's the boo box all over again. Anywho, thank you, Paralyze, for the music.
Yeah, thanks.
It's good. You should check them out on the Bandcamp. It's cool stuff. I did find one of their songs on TikTok, which I was surprised.
Oh, nice.
So, hell yeah. We also exist on social media. On Instagram, @BlankBodiesPod. On TikTok, @BlankBodiesPodcast. We have a Patreon. If you think the work that we do is good and worth your dollar dues, we'd appreciate that so we can further do more research in these kind of deep dives and things. And
you can support our good work to bring words of encouragement and education to the masses.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're running some polls right there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, this will be up. There's at least one every month. And sometimes you get extra polls when we can't decide what to focus on an upcoming episode, or we have a deep dive series coming up, or I'm bored and decide to poll.
We have a congregation. We want to make sure that we're servicing it appropriately.
Exactly.
I need to get out of storyteller voice, guys. I'm so sorry. I'm very tired.
But there's all kinds of stuff. You join our Discord, that's free. But there on the Patreon, you get special Discord titles. There's a patron-only chat. You can get show notes. You can get character sketches at higher tiers. There's the blood. So check that out.
Yeah, and we are trying to hit the Patreon goal of $500 a month, so we can do 4 episodes a month, plus the Patreon episode. And I will do the Accursed World of Darkness Milk episode that I've been threatening everyone with. Let me make this threat a reality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Milk.
Blech. Dairy, lactose, all that kind of shit. If you have a cool project and want to share it with us, we have blankbuddies@gmail.com. We would like to talk to you about your cool projects.
Yeah,
That'd be
come
dope.
say hi.
Come say hi.
Fucking you won't do it.
You do it. Come on.
You won't. You ain't real.
I mean, you could,
I'm not
though.
going to. Why would I email myself, John?
I was talking to them.
Why would I email
I was-
myself?
I
The
was talking to
files
them.
are in the computer.
Because we just want more engagement. So if we just email ourselves a whole bunch.
No metric uses email engagement.
That's where they're failing.
No one's gonna... YouTube's not gonna be like, you got so many emails this month, we're gonna give you $2
Hey,
instead of
you
the
know
one.
Oh my
I'm
God.
just saying, they watch anyway. We might as well try to get them to pay us.
Yeah. Also, we are gonna be at Gen Con.
We
Sure,
are.
we are there.
We're doing a live version of this.
Kind of. Not this.
This.
But
yeah,
this.
basically this.
The concept of this.
You should come say hi. We want to see your faces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fill
Will's
up
working
those seats and
on
then we can
some
yell at you from a stage.
merch stuff.
Oh yeah.
As well, and I shall be for if you're a patron, I'm going to be asking some questions soon to help us facilitate our Gen Con show. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I'm so tired. I think I understand why Set took so many fucking long naps, because I spent several days just digging into various religious systems for the show, and I've lost my fucking mind.
It is midnight, so I think we should say
go to
good
bed.
night.
Good
Fucking
night.
hell. Good night.
Good night.